Today, we're going to be talking about feeling first and then solving. So, I want you to notice when you start to try to solve for problems or solve for worries in a way that doesn't really get you anywhere. So, what this might look like is maybe you feel sad, maybe you feel fear, and your brain just starts going into like, well, let's change this and let's change that and let's do this and let's do that. And often, what you might notice is it often tries to go to like changing the past. So let's look at our past and let's play around in like these fake scenarios about how we can change things and then now would be better. And so if you start to notice yourself like coming up with all these ideas, but none of them would ever work, and like it's not this like clear problem solving where you're like, okay, here's my problem, here's ideas, I can clearly come up with a solution, I can move forward. Instead, it feels confusing, it feels like a mess, it feels overwhelming, and it really just feels like you're not getting anywhere, even though you're kind of like doing a lot of stuff. If this is what's happening, the way to get out of this and actually get to the point where you can like usefully problem solve is to feel whatever emotion it is first. Now, the brain likes to get a little tricky. So, what it wants to do is get you into the solving mode so that you don't actually feel the emotion. So, it takes this awareness of like, hey, I notice that I'm doing this. I notice that I am feeling this negative emotion. Or I notice that I'm like solving. That's usually my key is like noticing, oh, wait, I'm trying to solve everything in my life right now from this space that's not actually really useful. And so what I do then is I just drop right into the feeling. So I notice at some point my brain is like, we should do this, we should have done that, this is different, we should have done this. And instead of like letting that continue to spin, I just drop right into the feeling. So what that looks like is I just close my eyes, I just take a few deep breaths, and then I just notice where I feel that emotion. And if you do this, it usually just comes right up. It's like I notice, oh, there's a tightness in my throat. I notice like it feels like I have a headache, like right here. Like I notice these sensations that come up, and then I'm able to sit with them. So when you sit with that emotion, you want to just describe it to yourself. So you want to describe the emotion in maybe like color, size, shape. Is it moving, temperature, texture? Just sit with and describe it to yourself. I like to think like if I was going to draw your emotion on a board, what would you have to tell me? You'd have to tell me what color it was, what size it was, where it was located, if it was moving. Just whatever you can think to describe it without getting into, well, it feels kind of like this, or it feels like, when you're walking down the street and like this is happening, like, how does it feel like in these sensations? Hot, cold, yellow, orange, it's a circle, it's blue, it's moving really fast, it's moving really slow. And then just sitting there with it, breathing through it, and then after you've sat with it long enough, it will either go away completely or decrease in intensity. So then what this actually does is once that emotion is processed, you immediately feel better. So if you're feeling better, you might actually not feel the need to like go out and solve a ton of things because you feel better. So your brain's not trying to get out of the emotion. But if you're still like, hey, you know what? This is still a problem that I want to solve. You're now in a different headspace and emotional state to actually sit there and figure out that problem. You're going to notice that the line of thinking that you were having when you weren't processing the emotion is very different after you process that emotion. So if you're finding yourself trying to like solve these things, or you have any emotion that comes up, follow this process and notice the difference. How did you feel before? How did you feel after? How did it feel to actually process the emotion? Because a lot of times we find, oh, it actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Are you constantly judging yourself for not taking action? Are you frustrated with yourself because you just don't understand why? Are you really, really mean to yourself when this happens? I find that when we actually understand why are we showing up this way? Why is our brain working against us? When we can actually understand that, it's so much easier to have more compassion for ourselves because we understand why it's happening instead of just being like frustrated that it's happening. So if you want to have more compassion with yourself because you actually understand what's happening, then go to successbykayla.com to sign up for my free video, Why You Aren't Taking Action. Successbykayla.com to get instant access now.